Okay.
Dandy Breuninger just got back from Hawaii. When did you get back?
Got back last Friday. We're there for about 8 days.
And did you end up swimming with the sharks like we were talking about, or how'd that
We
go?
did 3 miles out. At first, it was very rough. And then I'm telling you, it was so calm. I don't know if I've ever been out 3 miles and it was that calm.
Hmm.
Maybe in the Caribbean sometime. But we jumped in the cage. My oldest did not jump in the cage. Christina led the charge. She jumped in the cage first. My youngest Madison jumped in, and then I moseyed my way in. And there were probably 50 Galapagos sharks as soon as we were in there in the water. It was cool because you saw some of the sharks were tagged, so you can tell that the university was studying them and tracking them. And then when you went underneath the water with your GoPro, you could hear the whales talking underneath the water, and we would see them breach, and they were all over the place. It was a really cool experience. I was skeptical at first, you know.
What do you say, a Galapagos shark? What's that?
Oh, I mean, it's a scavenger.
Well, it's not like a great white or.
No, no, most sharks are scavengers unless you're like a great white is a big time predator. Bull
Hmm.
shark is a big time predator, tiger shark. Um, so you're not allowed to feed the shark. So once they just kind of see it in the water, they think you're actually going to feed the shark.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It was a good experience.
Little terrifying, like you wet your draws a little bit.
No.
No?
Oh, but when we went out there in the morning, they put the cage in the water.
Hmm.
When we went out there, the cage it looked like it had been attacked, but was really attacked by the wind, not the sharks.
Hmm. Got it. Well, you can check that off the bucket list now. You've officially swam with the sharks now. You've got your shark card.
That's right.
That's right. Well, good for
We
you.
surfed. Um, all of us got on the board, no problem, and we surfed. So that was cool.
Hmm. Great. Great. Well, welcome home. You still look as white as I remember you being, though. So you must have had plenty of sunscreen on.
Getting old, you got to avoid the sun when you're getting older.
Yeah, that's what they tell me. That's what they tell me. Well, your
I,
name came up a few times this week. We just had a Top Gun event. There were a couple hundred people at head office. It was awesome. And I was talking a little bit about AI and, my experience with you in Houston with AI. And so I know you weren't necessarily planning on this piece, but anything you want to say about your experience thus far with the bots? And tell me if I'm wrong, but you've got 6 recruiting bots making outbound calls right now. Your recruiters are really managing the bots, but anything you want to share on your experience with AI and recruiting?
well, it's a work in progress. At first my bots were having a hard time differentiating a voicemail and then a live person. So I think they're past that. Then it has a hard time with a lot of background noise. But the concept is my bots can make 1,800 calls per second. And we're in a recruiting war. Um, my attitude was if I can push out all of our active calls, as it gets great at 9 o'clock in the morning or 9:31, all the calls are made. So third loops will be called by Steven, my one bot, and then Trixie, my college grad sounding bot, will call maybe the actives, and then I have Jerome calling another set of groups. So third loop, second loop, and then the first loop. That was my idea. Um, so far, the bots have not had as good enough retention compared to the live person. Um, we had recently our first person who booked via bot went on a second interview in our company, started, but she quit the first day. um, not related to anything that wasn't transparent about the position or expectations. Just, typical, kind of turnover in terms of, you know, didn't work out. But the attitude was call them at 9:31. My girls field some of the incoming calls as well as the bots will field incoming calls. And then for the ones that we didn't get, call them again at lunchtime at 12:30. And then call them again 7 o'clock at night. So in Chicago, third biggest market in the country, if I was getting 100 active candidates a day, coupled with what my budget is on passives, let's just say it's 200 calls per day. Usually it takes a good recruiter, 6 to 8 hours to make 100 calls. So if I could do 200 in the morning, 200 in the midday, 200 in the evening, just pure numbers and logic, I would be able to out recruit other companies, including other ICLs. So I'm not there yet. And, um, so we're just trial and error. Let's say a bot called you and you hung up. So then I'd have a live person go out and call you back. Hi, Jamie. Hey, this is Andy Breuninger. You were speaking to one of our artificial, intelligence assistants. We Jonathan Wesley, it's my company name. We're innovative and we use technology to kind of be a trailblazer in the industry. We noticed you hung up, and a lot of them have done voicemails. But I'm a live person. We're interested in meeting with you. Call us back. Originally, as we're building out the scripts and getting the bots more mature, because it takes time for them to mature, we're having them call a lot of passives. So at first, the success rate on passives for bots, is not amazing. And they were like maybe calls that were from December. So they were like kind of old, crusty leads, if you will. And I'm having my live people call my brand new actives just because, frankly, at the same time, I still have to have second interviews. I still have to replace the weakest link and I still have to grow. So I feel like it's a big initiative for me. I started it, in that Houston general area. Cunliffe and I were talking at some point. I did also a Top Gun event, but I did mine in Atlanta. And then, we were talking about it and we hadn't talked, but we were thinking about the same. So my initiative by the end of the year, I'd like to say my bots are calling some more of my actives. Um, but like anything, artificial intelligence, the cost is awesome. And then I could use potentially my full-time recruiters. I won't lay them off because they're good people and there's always room for great people in your company, but maybe they could do other things to help drive revenue or create opportunity, you know?
Yeah, or bot management. I mean,
Totally. I mean, if they have 6 people on their team, sure. How come Jerome doesn't book anybody, but Trixie books way more people?
hmm,
Like we don't, how's that work out?
hmm,
So that's kind of where we are. We're still working it out. We've dialed back a little bit because we're really focusing on April, May recruiting.
hmm.
So my recruiters, and then for some reason, I find that I think nationally, for some reason, indeed, we're not getting nearly as many actives as we used to. So I don't know if we're starting to see a shift where it used to be Monster was the best thing in the world, and then it was Career Builder, and then it was Zip Recruiter, and then it was Indeed. I don't know if we're starting to see a shift into another, recruiting search engine, but you know, we're but April recruiting outside of tons of May grads isn't usually historically the best, as you know.
Yeah,
March.
yeah, interesting. Well, I mean, I'm going to keep checking in with you on this on the bots. I mean, everybody's dabbling with AI to a certain degree. You're just probably the most aggressive. I mean, 1,800 calls per second. So you're kind of at that cutting edge of that outbound calls. I've heard of some people too using AI as a resume puller. Like, hey, here's 50 examples of resumes that I love these people. So feed the AI machine, and then, okay, here's people that just aren't going to do well. Here's 50 resumes like that. And so you're teaching it how to like pull and how to scrape for the candidates you're looking for. So you're not playing with anything like that, are you?
Not really. I might be a little bit more old school, although I'm on retail and I guarantee wages. I mean, I still, years ago, I did some pilot. Dorfman and I both did a pilot where candidates were filling out surveys before they were eligible to get an interview. And based on their survey score, were
Mhm.
the people that we were going to interview. And he hated it because he was like missing out on people that scored poorly, but they were like owners in his organization.
Mm,
Um, so my attitude is, I still believe that, if you bring someone in the door and they're just excited, you know, and they have charisma and they care, like they care about the quality of their work and they care about winning and they care. I think that's something that probably we don't talk about enough, but I think those guys over time, this could change their life for. Now, the studs, everyone's still going after the studs, but the best offices in the country, I'm sure, have tons of studs and tons of B players and tons of sales reps that just this is a good sales job for them. And it has been.
mhm.
So yeah, I'm just really working the law of averages. Now I don't have 1,800 actives or leads. That's what they are. I don't have 1,800 leads per day to do, but my human is limited to making 100 to 125 calls. And
Right.
then the things I can't control are attitude, emotion, whatever's going on in their personal life with their kids or their spouse, or they didn't sleep last night. The bots are going to be at least consistent for me. And even if the bots don't become a fantastic, amazing, great recruiter, maybe people don't want to talk to robots and it's frustrating, whatever that looks like. Maybe they'll be used more to confirm people, to solicit feedback for people who don't show. There's definitely a place for them.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
the number one, thing for me would be, gosh, if they could supplement my recruiting, if I can get 10 more observers per week or second interviews per week based on bots calling them 3 times. Because I've traveled around, I ran offices in different places. Like in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I remember my rookie year, you got maybe if you were lucky, 100 candidates per week apply to your company. So like you had to reach out to those 100 people like 4 or 5 times without harassing them. You had to keep calling the same person. I remember one of my favorite outside deals was in Cleveland, Ohio, and he was like, "It's the same thing. Like you have to constantly call them." So that's where I think it could add so much value.
Yeah.
I'm just just cracking the code on it,
Yeah.
taking
No,
a little bit of a backseat because I got to prioritize me recruiting with live people because I got to
sure.
get the 5 studs in the door that I'll open up an office and then I'm rebounding right away and then hopefully setting myself to open up an office at the end
Yeah.
of the summer.
Yeah, no, it seems like the writing's on the wall. I mean, we're all going to, I mean, none of us are like anti-technology. Like, no, this is how we've always done it. Let me keep placing newspaper ads. Like, we're all like, hey, what is, like you even referenced, like, it was Monster, then Career Builder, Indeed. Is there something new that we're missing out on? So yeah, we all want to stay current in this recruiting war because I mean, every great company is trying to find the next superstar in their business. So, we want the best talent in our company. So we have to stay current. So again, I'll just check in with you. I didn't want to use this whole call just on that. I just wanted to kind of get, you were a hot topic. You were brought up a lot. And so I'll check in with you in the next couple months, see how
Yeah.
you thoughts. The main thing I wanted to talk about in Houston, I was and we had this conversation because I was talking about, Ed Cunliffe. He did such a really good job with Salesforce. One of my big takeaways from, or not Salesforce, with Click, that he did such a good job with like, boy, he sure uses that tool to get the data to then drive some great conversation. So one of my takeaways was, hey, I need a little retrain on Click, and I got one. It was interesting as was talking to you about it. You were like, "Yeah, I don't really use the data as much. I just really get to the same place by asking questions." And you and I kind of role played that a little bit, and it was fascinating. I just found you to be like a great, almost like a great interviewer, if you will. You were just asking the right question and then followed up with another question. You're obviously really listening and you're getting to the core of like what that rookie owner or what that leader or what that promoting owner really needs to understand or focus on. So do you want to talk a little bit about that, how you really extrapolate, you know, information in a conversation to get to the point of great action items to help your owners and top leaders level up and produce?
Sure. Well, I'll preface it with, you know, at this stage of the game, you probably have a good idea. Not maybe the exact idea, but yeah, probably have a good idea why an office is underperforming. So Jamie calls me and says to role play, "Hey Andy, gosh, I'm not happy with my office right now. I don't know everything going on in his office, but for an office to grow, a few things have to happen, right? You have to have, good weekly averages where guys are making enough money to pay their bills, and the top guys in the company have to make pretty good money. Where it's like, wow, Jamie's making $1,000 a week. I'm into it. Or if that's too low in some cities, $1,200 a week or whatever that looks like. So daily rep pay. Number two is recruiting. Number three is culture slash relationships, right? Kind of, and then you can kind of identify what they don't have. And then it's the owner's example, but then you can kind of identify what they have or don't have to kind of get them there. So if you call me up and say, whatever it is, I want to talk to you about it. So I'll just ask questions. So I'm not happy with your office. Okay. So part of layering questions is use part of their answer in your question. You're not happy with your office. It's almost like repeat, reassure, resume. You're not happy with your office. What about your office are you not happy with? Well, I hate my leaders. You hate your leaders? How many leaders do you have? You know, well, I have five. Okay. And you hate them all? Why do you hate those leaders? When you say hate, like you can't stand looking at them in your office, what do you mean by hate? Not just, yeah, just they don't do the right things. Okay. Give me an example of what do you mean they don't do the right things? So then you keep layering these questions. So yeah, people feel like they're being listened to, but they are being listened to. And then what happens is you're layering it and you're eventually getting to the root of it. They don't qualify for leadership, Andy. It's just so heartbreaking to me. Okay, so they don't qualify for leadership. Okay. Why do you think that is? Dude, they suck. Okay. Well, tell me about your atmosphere. Tell me about how you practice. Who's the white rabbit in your office? Like, who is that top person that does $1,200 a week or 1,500 a week, or some offices 2,000 a week? Oh, you have a small office. Do you think it's important that you have a white rabbit? Do you think you could be the white rabbit? Do you think if you were the white rabbit, would people want to do what you do? What's preventing you from being the white rabbit? Oh, your time, your schedule. Well, tell me about your schedule. You know what I mean? So you kind of ultimately you want the guy to think for themselves. I'm 45 years old. I didn't get into the business. I'm going to have close to 60 offices by the end of this year. Okay. I didn't get in the business to manage 60 offices and 60 entrepreneurs. I want to coach. I like that. I find that fulfilling. Um, but I'm not going to jump into data entry unless I really have to, or this person's not being honest with me. But if I have a coaching call and I'm like, well, bro, you're telling me that your wires are 20,000. I have like my org sheet and I'll say, wait a minute, your last wire wasn't 20,000. It says, it was 18,000. All right, don't give me give me the truth and then I can help you. Um, But that's my main MO, Jamie. Like my goal, and I want my people to be leaders of men and women, you know. So we have some consultants on our crew. Some have matured to be leaders. They think for themselves, they run their own orgs. I'm guest speaking on their org calls versus whatever, but I'll still touch base with them. Tell me about this. What's your strategy with this person? Is there anything I can do to support you? Almost like they're that D4. You're a consultant, so you're a D4. Just touching base. How can I support? Can I reach out to a phone call with someone? Yeah, can you call this person? Just talk shit to him, just to build a rapport. I think he's down in the dumps a little bit. Why do you think he's down in the dumps? Oh, that makes sense. All right, yeah, I'll totally call him. I'll just talk shit about the Yankees to him or whatever. You know what I mean? So then that's how I'm strategizing with my consultants that I work with. Um, but a lot of my coaching calls, like one-on-ones, are really a lot of like my first gen owners who aren't consultants and second gen offices who are not working with a consultant. So that's my MO. Teach them how to think so they can build an organization. Sometimes I
Yeah,
have to remind them.
yeah. That's a great principle, and I think everybody's aligned with that. That nobody wants to. Hey, I'm the consultant, and I'm micromanaging the entire business, and everybody's got to check into me, and I want to know everything going on in the business. Like, man, that sounds like too much work. I mean, again, that's not what we signed up for. You just, I mean, it just seems like you're gifted in you get to the heart of the matter. Like you're not just asking, a random question. Like you're asking a question, you're going down another path. Like you're getting to the juicy stuff. Any thoughts on that? Like how do you really get to the parts where they see themselves in the mirror the way they need to make the proper change or focus on the right thing? A lot of times I find owners are just they're focused. I felt guilty of this. I felt like I was the master of the C priorities and I sucked with the A priorities. Like, man, I can check stuff off. Man, I'm the best ID badge manager in my business, man. Well, Jamie, that's not important. Like, you don't need to be good at that. What you need to be good at, you need more observers in your business, like, so how do you get to like, are you walking in with a preconceived idea of like, okay, I already know what the guy needs to work on, or you're just genuinely getting to that point by just asking
Oh,
questions?
well, a little bit of both. So I copied Ed. I'm going to give a lot of credit for him when he ran that meeting about sending an org email about competition. So I have the pulse of like what wire sizes are with guys, right? And that's like kind of your blood pressure to an office. The lower the wire, higher the blood pressure. You're like, shit, you're gonna have to start exercising and changing some habits here, or else. And then you got a guy like a Danny Giannone who's doing like $70,000 wires every week, and it's like that guy's blood pressure's got to be pretty low, right? Um, I would say honestly, though, probably the majority of them are. If you called me and said, like, say, let's say I'm hitting golf balls just at the range. Today I went to the range for 30 minutes at lunchtime, right? Just get some swings in. Um, One of my owners, Mod Meta, calls me up, and he just calls me up. Now, I already know he's a first gen guy, so I talk to him all the time. I talk to him a ton. And yeah, I mean, I already know that like he's trying to get to consultant. He's got multiple teams growing in his office again, because I know this. So our conversation today was more like, he was calling me he was in the field shadowing an interview and a trainee, like a day three, and then he was on to the next store. So my feedback was just, hey, do his assistant managers, hey, James and Canyon know that you're going into the field when you don't have to, again, to go shadow, right? And you know why that's important, right? It's essentially just to make sure that these assistant managers know that this is a great example that he's going in the field as a tier one office and he's building bench strength by making sure the new leader is training the day three when he doesn't have to. His wires are, $40,000 a week, right? And then if you had a question, he just was talking about open markets. And then I was like, well, again, the question was, well, I love St. Louis as a market. What don't you like about it? But I didn't want to influence his conversation. I wanted him to feel great about it. It seems like there's 17 stores. Don't you think that's a lot of territory? Yeah, dude, you can get to 34 guys. Okay, and then tell me about Texas. What don't you like about Texas? What do you like about Texas? What does your guy think about Texas opening up? What does he think about St. Louis? How could you support? Are they the same time zone? So I don't know. I think none of this was prepared, but it was just like, are there, potential obstacles? Like, and that kind of call was honestly a little bit more brainstorming.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to cover some basis on making sure your system manager knows that you're setting a really great example. And this is your consultant speech when you're on stage is like, hey, I did the work when I didn't have to. And, I'm building not a house of cards, a strong foundation.
Yeah. Yeah. My takeaway just listening to what you're saying, Andy, is I mean, it just sounds like you're really present, right? Like you're not, I mean, there's some people you talk to, and as you're talking to them, they're having another conversation, on their phone or something. You're present with Madhav, like you're listening. They're not getting half your brain when they're talking to you.
I don't know. I was hitting golf balls while we're talking.
Maybe they were getting half your brain then. Um, yeah, interesting. Interesting.
But I think it takes practice. I learned from John, teach your people how to think, you know? So I practiced that, like it's so easy as an owner to go, Steve, what are you doing? Do this. Nobody wants to hear that.
Hmm.
Like, I don't want to hear it from my spouse. I don't want to hear it from my kids. I don't want to hear it from a business partner. I don't want to hear that. I want to make the if I own the decision,
Hmm.
if I feel good about I'm making the decision, I'm gonna own it usually. And
Yep.
it means I'm gonna bring more excitement to it and I'm gonna be a little bit more passionate about it.
Hmm.
Andy thinks I should do this, so I'm gonna do it, but I fucking disagree with you.
Right.
Like, then you're just doing it because I asked you to do it, you know?
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
I would
And they're not
encourage
going to
anyone
buy.
who listens, let's practice that.
People are reluctant to buy into somebody else's, idea or decision. But again, if it's their own and their light
Yeah,
bulb went off on their own, like, oh, thank you, Andy. You're a great sounding board. I found
yeah,
Ken Gudnick, like that's one of his superpowers is I have always told him, like, you ask like the important question. Like you ask me the question that I really should be asking myself. And I always seem to get to the right answer on it feels like I'm doing it on my own, but I'm really doing it with you. Like that's the value you bring. And he always smiles when I say that because he knows it to be true. He's not a high direction guy. He's a figure it out for yourself, but let me ask you the important questions and I'm not going to let you off the hook so easy. Let's go a little
yeah.
deeper on that one. So you remind me a lot
Great.
of Ken Gutnick that way.
Something to consider. Anyone who's listening and to this recording, I would tell you the first thing though, when I'm talking to someone who reaches out to me, is I got to make sure that they care, that their focus is there. So Steven is the only guy that I see on the call. He might call me and then I might say, well, how are you doing? Like, how are you doing? How's life, regardless of business? Like, how's your health? How are your kids? Like, dude, everything's good. I'm not, I'm fine. I trust, my focus is on this. So then you kind of know their focus. Sometimes some guys know what they need to do. They're just using you as a sounding board, I think, because there's other distraction that they just, they're really using an excuse. They need someone to listen or someone to vent to without judging. So I always kind of ask, like, how you feeling? How are you feeling regardless? You got a little money in the bank or a ton of money, or are you bored? Are you excited? What gets you excited? All right, cool. Well, I can, first of all, I know where you are. I've been there, a little feel, felt, found. I know how you feel. It's frustrating. Um, I can tell you a story. I felt the same way back in 2000 and, you know, 19. Get promoted to senior national, overrides explode, and then this disease comes in 2020. I was like, oh my God. You know?
Hmm.
But you get where I'm going with that fictitious conversations. I think that's important for anyone who's going to try to put this in practice.
Yep.
Okay, got buy-in from the person. Okay, it's always going to come down to the same thing. Average rep pay per day, got to have the white rabbit. Who's going to be the white rabbit? Why aren't you the white rabbit? Okay, if the owner's not going to the field. Well, Andy, I have 8 guys on my crew, 7 of them are on Jamie's team, so then it's asking questions to kind of get to, well, have you started taking out interviews? Do you have 5 first-gen leaders? There's a consultant named John Black. He lives by 7 first-gen leaders, and you can kind of share those stories and ask those questions. Tell me about your culture, you know? Ooh, how many people are dating in your office? Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, that's good, Andy. You delivered what I was looking for on this call. I appreciate your thoughts on bots, and I appreciate your thoughts on really how to coach by, again, being present, asking the right questions, and letting people figure it out for themselves. So, and you've got a dynamite crew. I mean, something's obviously working. I mean, with, like you said, Danny G with the 70K wires, Michael, Layfeld is doing unbelievable. I mean, you've got a team of studs. So I certainly
Yeah,
admire your crew.
yeah, I'm grateful. They're good guys for sure. And we'll keep promoting them. So, we'll see how it goes.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Andy.
Thanks for
Appreciate you, man.
inviting me on the call. Great seeing you.
Great
I'll
seeing
talk to
you.
you.
I'm glad you're safe from the sharks, man.
All right, I'll see you later on.
Okay, sounds good. I'll see you.